What's going on, guys? Welcome to the first ever episode of the Pit Crew podcast. Today, we're coming at you live with Chris from Drive Smart, Robert Hill. We got a special guest on tonight, and that's going to be NASCAR driver Kyle Weatherman. So we're all excited. It's going to be a heck of a show. Whoo, what you thinking, Robert, man? I am so hyped up about this one. It's going to be a heck of a show. We done all the iRacing stuff, and now it's time for the first ever podcast.
Yeah, this is going to be a really fun podcast that we have for you folks. Obviously, tonight, kicking it off with the driver of the Drive Smart machine in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, Kyle Weatherman. And we're going to talk to a ton of people throughout the year. Hopefully, get some guys on there that maybe got some fresh wins and whatnot throughout the year. It's going to be a heck of a good time, and I'm glad that you're all here with us.
Absolutely. It's going to be a heck of a show. And Chris, good to see Chris back.
Boys, I couldn't be more excited. Yeah, so our first episode of the podcast, obviously the Drive Smart to Daytona event was a ton of fun, right? But we want to give everybody in the audience access to really kind of sit down and get intimate with some of the drivers and some of the team owners and some of the influencers that you guys really love. And that's what we plan on bringing to you, right? And tonight, we couldn't start in a better place than having Kyle Weatherman on as a special guest because, like, obviously, he is near and dear to my heart, right? But love the guy, and we're gonna get in depth, see where life started, how he got into racing, some of his experiences, and kind of really go through the whole story. So we're super excited about that, and we're really glad if anybody can join us live. If not, you're gonna be able to catch this on YouTube, on Apple, on Spotify. So we plan on being able to give you this content on a weekly basis. And like I said, we're super excited. So without further ado, why don't we bring in our guest of the night, Kyle Weatherman? There you are,
Kyle Weatherman.
Can we talk about Dilby? Dude, you absolutely killed it right there. I mean, I am pumped up to be on this podcast show right now. Just from that intro, you nailed it.
Yeah, it almost feels like gentlemen start your engines, right?
I know. I'm
bro.
ready to jump out of this wall right now.
Man, he's a ball of energy naturally. Get him a cup of coffee, and he's just out of this world.
He has a cup of coffee, and that's the dangerous part.
He does.
No, I'm having fun. It's a fun night. I mean, Kyle has a lot of things going for him. We're about to kick off the season for Daytona. We got so much content coming this year, so much stuff going on. I'm ready to see that Drive Smart car hit the track at Daytona. I mean, we got so much to be looking forward to. First ever podcast here, episode number 1. And we got the big name on here, Kyle. So overall, it's just going to be fun. How you feeling, Kyle?
Oh, I'm ready for it. I am ready for this. Obviously, Chris, the energy he brings, I'm sure he's gonna loosen up a little bit here. He's gonna bring some energy, and I'm ready for it.
That's the second time you told me that in 2 weeks, and I never get nervous, right?
I know. Come on, Chris, like relax a little bit, man. We're just chilling. We're just talking here.
So, you know what? Since we're just talking, Kyle, so why don't we start from the very beginning, right? When you were first born, when you were first a child, right? So why don't you walk us through some of your early life before racing and kind of like let everybody know what you're about,
I don't remember much early, right? Honestly. So the last thing I remember is before racing started, I tried a couple sports. I tried soccer, like everybody. And I actually wrestled. I wrestled for a little bit. I know that's weird. I don't know why I did that. I probably won't do that again. But yeah, so other than that, I started racing when I was 8. So literally any type of life story, 99% of it revolves around racing and what I've done in the industry and the sport. I've dedicated my life to it. I love it. And it's just, yeah, it's really to ask any other question than what I've done in the racing community or what I've done for my career. It's hard to find other things, to be honest, but it's I love it.
So
have you always wanted to be a race car driver?
So no, initially no, it really wasn't in the family. My dad raced a little bit of go-karts and stuff like that, but nothing professionally or anything like that. The reason it actually started was my dad's best friend Brian Main is related to David Reagan. Brian is David's cousin, and at the time, David Reagan, his father, Ken Reagan, was vice president of U.S. Legend Cars. So when we were 8 years old, we started in go-karts, just like that. And then when we turned 9, and I turned 9, and Clayton turned my brother Clayton turned 8, I believe. We directly went into the Bandolero series with Ken and David. So that's really how it started. I don't know. It just started to do it as a hobby and just kind of do it on the weekends and have fun with something. And that was going go-kart racing with our family. But then we quickly realized that that we can do this professionally, and it just took off drastically from there, really.
So at what moment did it really start to click that's like, okay, this is no longer a hobby, right? This is no longer something cool to do on the weekends. And it's like, okay, I have a real shot of making something out of this.
Well, I quickly fell in love with it, first off, right? So I think that was probably the most important thing is I just love the sport. I love the competitive nature that it brings, and the energy, right? So yeah, I just quickly realized it. I'd say probably, obviously I didn't realize that when I was 8. I'd say 10, 11 years old is like when I kind of, it like clicked. It went from kind of, doing on the weekends, having fun, but then I wanted to get back to my like video games or anything like that, my Nintendo DS or whatever, right? Um, I'd say from like 11, 12 years old is when I really realized like, all right, I want to do this. Like I want to be on the highest stage of racing in NASCAR, and we're gonna do this. We're gonna make it happen. So thank you to my dad. I'm a very dedicated, very hardworking person, and we're going for it. So yeah, I work harder than everybody around me. I have more energy than everybody around me, and just yeah, we have fun with it too. That's the most important thing.
And was it always NASCAR for you, or were you looking maybe the open wheel side of things? I know around that age that you mentioned, 9, 10, 11, guys are thinking, do I want to go IndyCar? Do I want to go NASCAR? Was it always NASCAR for you?
Yeah, yeah. No, there was no other question of what I wanted to do. I think the reason that probably was the relationship that we had with David Reagan, and then I kind of missed a quick tidbit, pretty important one too. So when we were 11 and 12, when we bought Legend cars, we actually bought all of the Legend cars from Chris Buescher, and the guy that basically raised me from 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 years of age was Michael Harper, and we traveled the world with him, and obviously Chris has been a huge part of my career as well. It started just buying the Legend cars from him, but from then on, I mean, heck, I moved in with Chris and Emma at the time, his girlfriend, now wife. I moved in with both of them when I was 18 years old, and lived with them until my mom and sister actually moved out here to Charlotte. So I know I'm throwing a lot out at once. I know it's all sounding kind of confusing and all sporadic, but yeah, no, there's just so many good people in this industry, and that's another thing is just the relationships that you can create is awesome.
Yeah, and that was a lot at once. And I know you've had quite a journey. So I know you went from David Reagan in the beginning, right, to Chris Buescher. So like, tell us about that. Like, tell us about that journey. Like, how'd you meet Chris, and like, how'd you get involved with him?
Yeah, so David was involved with Chris, so that was really kind of the leading sword there in a sense, right? So David kind of sent us down that path, like, hey, Chris is moving up to the ARCA series. Chris has stuff available. It just, and time frame wise, just really worked out. So when Chris was leaving the Legend Car series, uh, we bought all his stuff, and then kind of the person that kind of mentored and kind of trained Chris in a sense, and really worked on his racing craft, Michael Harper, and then we kind of just filled that void and took that spot. So, and then the relationship just grew from there, right? So, Chris and Michael were really close and still are, and it just created a relationship. We Chris is from Texas, Michael Harper is from Texas, and we started racing in Texas a little bit, and Chris would come to the track and help me out and stuff like that, right? So it just kind of grew from there, right? And I think the biggest thing is yeah, just having the relationship that started with my dad and Brian, and then moving that on with David Reagan, and then going on to Chris, and the relationships have just stayed, and it's just been a blessing for sure.
So you talk a lot about your supportive parents. Was it hard convincing your dad that you wanted to pursue a career to be a professional NASCAR driver at a young age? Because obviously that's such a big goal. But now, skip ahead to you being 26, you're there, you made it. So how was it back when you were that young age and you're like, I want to be a NASCAR driver when I grow up, and showing your parents that vision?
Yeah, I had the best parents in the world. They have been supportive since day one. My dad has motivated me to do better every single day. My mom is absolutely amazing as well. She's my rock. She really is. I love my mom. I'm a mama's boy. I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, she's been a huge supporter. I don't think there's ever been any question from either of those two what they were going to believe that I'm going to be and what I want to do. The only thing is, my mom has been scared, right? Obviously, every mother is scared in any type of professional sport, but any type of question of support, there's nothing there. So that was it's always been there.
Let me ask you a question. So obviously, like getting the product on the track when you're younger, that's the exciting part. You want to compete, you want to win. But what did like the day to day look like with your dad, you and your brother? Because I'm sure there had to be a lot of long nights in the garage.
Yeah, I was just gonna check and see if my hands were dirty. They kind of are, not really. I've got some callus. I from 8 years old, my dad, had me work on the go karts, right? So whether it was just cleaning them, changing the gear, changing the sprocket, changing anything that I wrecked, yeah, I've been involved since day one. Now, the early age, I was not for it, right? I didn't want to do it. I wanted to go back and play video games, play my Nintendo DS, all that stuff, right? But installed it very early, and I cannot thank him enough for that. Because yes, it is still in my DNA now. So I actually work 7 to 5, 7 to 6 at the shop here in Mooresville. Mario has 2 locations on the Xfinity side. He's got one in Florida. He's got one here in Mooresville. I work in the Mooresville shop. And yeah, I mean, I just anything that has to happen on these cars, we're putting the motor in tomorrow for the Daytona car. I was helping mount the seats. I was making leg boards. It doesn't matter, right? I just anything that has to do with an Xfinity car, I can tell you just about every single nut and bolt and what it does and why it does it. And I think when I show up at the track on the weekends, I think that is huge. Whether I'm smelling something that's not right, whether I hear something that's not right, I can kind of diagnose what it is and why it's doing it, and give the pit crew members a little bit more of an advantage of what they've got to bring and what kind of tools they have. And heck, I can even tell them what wrench they need. If they need 9/16 half inch, right? I can tell them what they need. So just knowing more about my craft and what I'm doing is super important. I mean, you see all these NFL players, right? They have to study the stat sheets. They have to watch tape. They have to watch film. And they have to know about the defense and what they're all going to do. That's the same thing with what we have to do, just a lot differently in a lot of areas. But I'm fully committed to this career, and we're gonna make it happen.
Yeah.
And do you find go ahead, Chris?
No, go ahead, Robert.
Do you find having to work on your own equipment from that young age, now doing the same thing with your NASCAR Xfinity Series career, do you think it's given you more of a respect of what the drivers do and deal with all the time, and your crew, of course, and has also possibly enabled you to have some of the opportunities you've had because you're willing to get in there, get your hands dirty, and show your team that you're there with them, you're part of the team?
1,000,000%. A lot of my opportunities have came from that. And yeah, the respect that is gained and the relationships that are created with the team members that you're traveling with for 33 weekends in a row, right? Well, not in a row, but pretty close. The relationships that are created and just the bond that you have and the trust. I'm in there working just as hard as they are, right? And I know what's going on just as much as they do, right? So I call myself a mechanic Monday through Thursday, right? And I am. So Friday is this light switch, and that's when I kind of start preparing more, and I do it more throughout the week as well, right? Whether it's watching film or if it's watching past races or getting on the sim at the tech center. So there's stuff like that. But from Friday on, a light switch switches, and I'm a driver, right? But I'll still go there and help push the car through tech and help any way I can. But mentally, Friday's when it switches for me, and we're ready to go.
How'd you develop like that mental switch, right? Because you go from being this hardworking mechanic, right, Monday through Thursday, and then when Friday comes, now it's driver mode, right? And like you have to switch that switch. And I know you're one of the hardest working guys I've ever seen in my life. So like, how do you prepare yourself mentally, and like, how do you flip that switch?
Yeah, that's hard. And it would it took a while to learn that and kind of, put different things in different categories, really. And understand that you can't let it affect other areas too, right? So if something happened, Monday through Thursday that wasn't good at the shop or whatever, right? I gotta be able to turn it off and just put 100% focus into giving it my all, right? So whether we didn't get something done on the car that I really wanted to because of time frame or anything like that, just got to switch it off and go give 110% because that's what we're going to do. So yeah, it took a long time to kind of realize that you got to put stuff in different categories, and I'm still struggling with it, and have to make it work. But you can even ask my wife Meg. It gets really serious on Saturdays, about an hour and a half before the race. Don't even talk to me. It's so bad. When early in our relationship, she's like, "Are you mad at me?" I'm like, "No, I'm like so laser focused that it's yeah, I just look kind of mean and mad." And she said that, and she's loosened me up a lot since then. But still, we go up, and I know I'm going super sporadic. But one of our rituals at the track is when I'm going up there to change, we'll go up there, I'll pray, and that's when the light switch there from then on is like, all right, we're locked in and we're ready. So we'll go up there, we'll go pray together. I'll change, and then I walk out with all my gear and go straight to the car and go to driver intros. Then we go to the car, meet with the fans and the sponsors, and we go on and put a show on. So that's I know that was a lot at once again as well, but just taking you a quick tidbit of kind of what happens.
So we're gonna take a
You
step
seem
back in a moment, right? But like the one thing I know about your wife is she is as intense, if not more intense than you when you're in the car, man. Like when she's in
Oh,
that box, dude,
I'm
she's
pumped about
very
it.
close.
And Chris, we talked about this. You're gonna have to mic her up in Daytona.
Oh my god,
Because yes, if
I got it.
anybody knows Meg, she's the sweetest person you'll ever meet in your entire life. But when the green flag drops, stay away. Stay away, because you're either getting punched in the arm because I'm doing good, punched in the arm because I'm doing bad. And she's yelling, pass him. Yeah, I've seen some videos, so I'm excited for you guys to mic her up. It's gonna be good for sure.
She's one of your biggest supporters, man, and
He
you're
is.
so lucky to have a wife like that. And honestly, like you guys are a perfect racing couple. And so let's take a step back real quick. So at some point in your life, when you were younger and you really were doing the car or the bandoleros and you were doing the go karts, right? So at some point you had to start traveling, right? So and this is a two-part question. So at what age did you really have to start traveling to go race?
I think my brother and I flew on a plane by ourselves when we were 9 years old,
Oh my
10 years old, and we had to get escorted. I think the earliest I remember is we flew Southwest, and we had to my mom or dad would bring us, or my grandma would bring us to the airport, get us checked in, and we'd have to be escorted to the gate. We'd go through security with somebody that's helping us get through security. We had like these blue name tag things, and yeah, I'm pretty sure 9 or 10 years old is when we first flew by ourselves. And yeah, I mean it was crazy early when we started flying. My dad, our go kart shop was based in St. Louis, Missouri, where I'm from. My dad would be driving the truck to wherever we're going that weekend. So he would leave on, I don't know, let's say like a Thursday, whatever, Friday morning. We would go to school Friday and get all of our tests done early, which that's a whole other topic we can get to. Um, we had to kind of talk with our teachers and get any type of testing done between 7 o'clock in the morning when we get there until 12 before we leave at lunch. And we would do that, right? So we had a kind of a routine on Fridays. If testing was going on or anything had to happen, we had to get it done early in the day because we were leaving and going traveling. Normally flying out. If we were a long distance, we were leaving at like 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right? So that's another thing is Holt High School is where I went, and all the teachers, the principal, they were all so supportive. They have never seen a race car driver in Holt High School, right? So just it was something so different. And I can even share pictures as well. I mean, we even had the car come to the school a couple times, and yeah, just that's the coolest part is I just had so many supportive people, and that's what made this happen, right? If the school would have been strict, not had more ground rules in a sense of where we had to go to each class, we wouldn't have been able to do it, right? We'd have been homeschooled, which would have made it a little bit harder or easier on the racing side. But my family believed that kind of getting that social experience and not just completely leaving everything right was important. So yeah, just super supportive people from top to bottom, and that's what made all this happen, and that's what still continued to drive it now.
So you kind of foreshadowed my second question, but at some point as you start getting older, obviously you're traveling more, right? Because you're 26, so through your teens I imagine you did a lot of competing, a lot of racing. So me personally, I'm not a professional driver, so I had homecoming, I had prom, I had a lot of events at school. So like what was that like? Because I'm sure there's had to be some things that you missed in high school and middle school that a lot of other kids go through, and you made those sacrifices to get towards where you were looking to go and accomplish your dream. But like in those growing years, when you're in your teen years, like what was that like?
Yeah. I went to one homecoming. That's it. That's the only thing I went to. Missed everything else. And I would look at it now, and I would turn around and do the exact same thing again. I had a lot of good friends in school, and definitely missed some of that aspect in a sense, right? But at an early age, I didn't go out and party. I didn't go out and drink. Still don't really drink at all, honestly. And just super laser focused on this, and it just happened so early. But yeah, to answer that question, there's a lot of stuff, Friday on that normal kids would do that I missed, and looking back at it, it's sad sometimes in a sense, but at the end of the day, if you'd ask me right now, and you basically did, I would do it all over again, and wouldn't change it.
Absolutely. So you seem very locked in for this season. Obviously, you got married, you full-time ride for the Xfinity Series. The season's coming up. Does this season feel any different? I see you in the gym every day on social media. You're working out. You seem very, very, very focused. Does this season feel any different versus previous years?
Yeah, I mean, all the way around, just super supportive people, and everybody just is on the same page. And not that it hasn't happened like that years previous, but just super supportive people. We've got Drive Smart, amazing group to work with here, and I'm not saying that because I'm on your guys' podcast. I love Chris and Dan. They are the best sponsor you could ever ask for. I mean, I'm so serious. Their energy that they bring to the track, their personalities, and what they're doing on and off the track. It's incredible. I'm not saying that because it is my sponsor. I'm just being completely honest. They're the best people to work with, and this was an absolute blessing from day one. So yes, I'm locked in. I'm loaded and ready to go. This is going to be a great year, and it cannot come fast enough, and it's coming quick. So we're ready for it.
So I'm not going to dive in. This wasn't part of the plan for the podcast, but Kyle, I'll tell you one thing. When we look, because it's not our first foray into NASCAR, right? Because we were with Rick Ware back in 2019, and getting with Mario and you and the team. The one thing I realize is everybody has a part to play, right? So you have to be not only a good team and a good driver, but you have to be a good sponsor, right? And everybody has a role to play. And we'll get to the story later, but I'll tell you one thing. Dan and I fell in love with you and the team at Texas, but we fell in love with you when we were out in Arkansas, and we really got to sit down and watch that Monday night football game and kind of get intimate. And you're an incredible guy, and your wife's a great lady, and just like sitting down with you, and at that point Dan and I knew it's like, if we're going to put our effort and our time and money, right, because motorsports is not cheap, behind somebody, like, you're the guy for the job. And not to get emotional, but I hope you guys felt the same way.
Yeah, I don't know if you're about to start cry. If you're not, I'm about
Right,
to.
yeah.
No, yes, you're exactly right. That was the moment too that I kind of realized. I'm like, these guys are awesome. And it happened before at the track, and just going to Arkansas as well. But yeah, I mean, when I tell you guys, and then there's multiple people I've told off this podcast, it's a perfect match, and you guys are absolutely incredible, absolutely great, and you're exactly right. I feel like everybody knows their role and their position, and we all do it the best of our ability, and it's going to line up to be a great year. And yeah, it's just out in Arkansas is definitely when I realize it, and I'm just very thankful and blessed to have an opportunity to work with you guys, and I couldn't have asked for a better sponsor at the perfect time. It was perfect.
And we'll get into the crazier side of that story later, right? Because it's too spicy now. Well, we'll go through that journey of what it was like to get together. So I want to. Now we went through the early life. Let's kind of go through when you graduated high school, right? You're still racing. So when you're finally out of school and you're still focused on racing and making it a career, like there had to be some weird years around 18, 19, 20. So what was that like, right?
Yeah, it was a transition from, moving out here to, and I actually did my last 2 years of high school online. Uh, so, gosh, I don't know the exact age I moved out here, whatever that would line up to be. Um, but those last 2 years I did online, and I moved in with Chris and Emma Busher. And yeah, so it was just a huge transition from, you know, doing it on the weekends and stuff like that, from making it actually a career. And it was just a huge transition period. And once again, it comes back to the people that were helping me transition into that spot and those roles. So there was a lot of mistakes made, and that's where you learn. So that's the most important thing, is if you can learn from the mistakes that you made and not do it again. So um, yeah, it was definitely an up and down season, in a sense, right? With life, but we made it through it, and we're out on the other side better.
So let's talk about the grind that like some young men and women go through when they're first trying to get into racing, right? Because I know it's very expensive, it's very competitive. So you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have the right drive or the ability, it's hard to accomplish it. So what would you all right, the best question is what would you say to a 16-year-old Kyle Weatherman right now?
I would say quit comparing yourself to others, because that does not matter. You always look at somebody else like, oh man, he got that sponsor. Oh, he got that right. He got that position. How did I didn't blah blah blah. Don't focus on other people. Focus on yourself, and make yourself the best you possibly can. And that's with anything in life. Just absolutely do any position the best of your ability. Create as many relationships as you can, and treat other people like you want to be treated. And life will be great. So there's a lot of stuff that I wish I could have done differently, for sure. But that would probably be the two things that I would say to myself is quit worrying about other people around you, and who got what opportunity and why you didn't, blah blah blah. Don't worry about that, and then treat others like you want to be treated, on and off the track, and yeah, that's those are the two most important things in this industry. I feel like, and there's a few others, but those two are definitely top ones right there.
And Chris mentioned being 16 years old. That was about the time that you linked up with Roush and their development program, at least as per Wikipedia. That could be way wrong. What lessons kind of did you learn from that opportunity? And maybe is there something you would have done differently with that experience that could have put you down a different path?
Yeah, you go back and look at stuff, and stuff could definitely have went differently, for sure. But I think personally, I think I would have just maybe used the relationship a little bit more, and kind of leaned on more of the smarts in that company or that industry. So, and that was the problem, right? Dad and I didn't know what we were doing. We were just listening to other people, and unfortunately, there's some people in this industry as well that will lead you down the wrong path, or and and do it on purpose in aspects or ways. There's sponsor hunters out there that, it's and you get to the nitty gritty, and some part of this sport is not fun to deal with. And we went through some of that definitely early in the career, and got taken advantage of a couple of times in multiple areas. But um, you know, once again, you can go back and look at stuff and be like, man, I wish I could have done that differently. But we learn from it. Uh, and that also kind of goes from like past past stuff that happens, or even present stuff that's gonna happen, or happening now. You can't compare it, right? And you can't go back and like look at it too deeply, or you'll get stuck. That's the other thing is. And there was a moment in my life where I was stuck comparing, like, man, I really wish I could have done that differently. I could have had this opportunity. No, I could have had this opportunity if I did this differently, right? And that did eat at me for a little bit, but it's you can't go back and change it. You definitely can't. All you can do is better yourself with the position you're in right now, and go out and get what you want, and that's what we're doing.
So absolutely, there's a lot of highs and lows in racing as you're working your way through the ranks, and that has built you to this level. But out of all them highest of highs and lowest of lows, what do you think is the biggest lesson you have learned through this whole process?
Yeah, the biggest one, it goes back to kind of what I said. I mean, early, all right, I was comparing and like, kind of wishing and hoping that other things would happen, and it's happening to other drivers. It's not happened to me yet. So that's a big one. But yeah, I think just the relationship part of the whole industry is super important, and I wish I would have taken a little bit more advantage of that early, and I think it would have helped me, progress a little bit faster. But we're right where we need to be.
Yeah, I mean, it makes so much sense because if you don't come from a generational racing family, right, like the Gibbs of the world, like how do you even like you said, you and your dad didn't really know, like you were passionate about it and you worked hard at it, right? But like, how do you make that transition? Like, how like it has to be so hard, right, to get into that inner
Yeah,
circle because you're one
yeah.
of what 36 of the best drivers in the world in your series. So like, how do you make that transition for being a 16-year-old? We'll call it a kid, right? A teenager to a grown man that's competing at one of the highest levels in the entire sport, like that transition has to be crazy. So can you tell us about like how that worked?
Yeah, it was. And yeah, we knew nothing. Zero, right? We were surrounded by a couple of good people that helped definitely lead us down the right direction, but they can't hold your hand through everything. Um, so we got kicked down multiple times, but you got to get back up, and we did. And yeah, that was the hardest part, right? Just the roller coaster of this sport and of this industry. Very thankful and blessed for what my dad was able to do, but yes, he wasn't loaded by any means, right? He was able to help afford the go kart, the Legends, Bandoleros, and a little bit of the ARCA. And when the ARCA series started, I did 5 races with my family team, and then after that, we had to find sponsors, and that's when kind of the work ethic of my craft really stepped up to the next level. And what I mean by that is a full-time job in the shop, working with whatever opportunity I had, and going out and creating opportunity in a sense with my work ethic and my ways. So um and I was still involved with the family side of stuff, right? Even from like I told you, 8 years old. But from after those 5 races that we did with the family ARCA series team that we had, um, from I guess that would have been 15. When I turned 16, it was going and getting a job, right, and trying to balance work and school and a job and just balancing everything. So yeah, it was very very. I grew up really quick, and I kind of had to, especially in this industry in this sport, in the way in the path that I took, um, and what I mean by that was when I was, let's say 12, I had to act like I was 15. When I was 15, I had to act like I was 20, right? And just be more professional, learn to speak better, and all that matters in this sport and in this industry. And just growing up at a high rate of speed, it was definitely difficult, and kind of looking at too, and kind of like, why is my dad making me do this? I want to go do this, right? And stuff like that, So just growing up at a high rate of speed was difficult early too.
All right, so absolutely. So listen, we're about a half hour in, so I think what we'll do is we'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back. And what I want to do is I want to kind of talk about the business side of it, right? Because you're in a very tough business, right? It's not easy. You could be the most talented driver in the world, but it takes a lot of money to make this happen. So we'll take a couple minute break. We'll come back here and we'll kind of dive into that. So we'll see you guys in about 3 minutes.
welcome back to the Pit Crew podcast. We're here with Kyle Weatherman, Robert Hill, Chris from Drive Smart. We had some very deep conversations with Kyle. This has definitely been an interesting interview all around. Such a cool podcast. And man, we're just really getting a very good behind the scenes view into Kyle's life on and off track. So jumping back on track here, what race are you most excited about? What track are you most excited about upcoming into this season?
The next one.
The next one, Daytona.
Daytona. Let's go. Daytona. Yeah, you always look to the next. My top 2 or 3. Okay, let's talk about Iowa. I am pumped to go to Iowa. Iowa Speedway has always been top of the list for me. I know they did a repave, so I'm interested to kind of go back there. I'm slightly upset about that. I really loved the pavement that was on there, the character that it had. So you asked me any time of the day of what my favorite track was, especially early in my career, it was Iowa. So I've never raced there in an Xfinity car. Super excited for that. But my 2 other ones are Darlington and Homestead. I love those 2 places. Low grip racetrack, got to get up on the wheel, get up by the wall at both of them. Yeah, I love those 2 places. Ran good at both those 2 places. So those 3 are highlight ones for me. But yeah, it's whatever the next one is my most important one.
And I want to ask real quick, just looking back on your career coming up, obviously you had quite the grind advancing your way through the stages of racing. 2 races really stick out to me. First off, your win in ARCA at New Jersey back in the day, I believe it was 2015. And then in 2021, you're running with Mike Harmon Racing in the Xfinity Series, finished 8th at Kentucky. Do either of those races kind of stand out to you as that moment where you just felt like, wow, I belong here and I can do this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously winning on a road course in the ARCA series, and if you want me to get super personal, that's what's eaten me up a little bit in my early career. Is there's so many races you can go back and look at that I shoulda, coulda, woulda won. I've ran 50 ARCA races, and I think I finished second like 12, 14 times. It was ridiculous. And that, that gets at you. I'm not going to lie to you, and that kind of ate at me for a while, but I think where I was at in my craft then and where I'm at now, and the patience that I've learned, and the mistakes that I made on track early in my career, obviously anybody in any type of sport, if you knew what you knew now, you'd be way better back then. But just, I didn't have patience in the car back then, and I'd be too aggressive, put myself in a bad spot, put others in a bad spot, so where my craft is at now is impeccable. Right. And where I was then. So, yeah, it was definitely a learning curve.
Let's get into the intimate side of the business now, right? So you get into ARCA, you're growing into yourself, but obviously it costs a lot of money. And from from everything you've explained to us, it's not like you came from a you're not Bill Gates' son, right? With all due respect, like you didn't come from a multi-billion-dollar family, so it costs a lot of money in motorsports. So at some point, you have to start chasing down sponsors, right? And like, what's that like, right? Like, how is that? How do you even start doing that at such a young age?
It's tough. Once again, you got to grow up quick. Social media is super important, especially nowadays. So that was something that really had to work on early in my career. Yeah, but just once again, speaking quicker, better, and on your feet faster. Knowing what brands want and what you have to give them, and that's the crazy part is every single brand is different in so many other aspects, right? So putting marketing decks together and putting proposals together and stuff. I'm not very good on a computer, and that's hard, So once again, having relationships with people that are better in other areas that you need help in is super important. And I think that's another thing that I should have learned quicker. Is it's all right to ask for help, If I would have asked for help a lot earlier in a lot of areas, I'd have been a lot further along. So, but yeah, the business side, it's tough. It is a hard industry, and really looking at it, there's not another sport besides the racing industry. Now that goes with like F1 and all that kind of stuff too. there's not another sport that has to deal with stuff like that in a sense, right? You look at football, and the reason I use football is because I'm a huge football fan. If you have talent when you're 8, 9, 10, 11, through high school, middle school, and in colleges pick you up and you succeed in college, have good grades, and keep your name clean, you know, people come find you and pick you up and say, "Hey, you're playing here," right? At whatever type of level of skill set you have. So, um, and that happens a little bit in this career, and that's actually kind of the path that I took early. I didn't have the money to go make it happen, so I had to make it happen in other ways. And I think the biggest asset that I had was working in the shop. I went early and worked at Mike Harmon Racing. Went and worked at Rick Ware Racing, and just was there, visually there. Wasn't driving anything. I went there and worked. From when the crew chiefs and everybody started getting there in the morning, I was there either when they got there or there before them, and walked in and turned the lights on with them. And I was just a mechanic, and just I was ready for an opportunity, right? And always ready for an opportunity. And there was multiple times where just right place, right time. Someone got sick, someone got hurt. Rick Ware, Mike Harmon gave me opportunities multiple times just for everything that I was putting in and the effort that I was putting in, and just everything aligned. Whether a sponsor came through and they kind of was able to pick a driver, which then they picked me, kind of thing, or however it happened, right? So just the hard work, the dedication, the grind, and the effort that I put in early and still do is I feel like what generates a lot of opportunity that I have. And it's tough. It's a lot of, and that's why I had so much time to compare to others, is because I wasn't driving at the time, right? So I'm like, man, I'm busting my tail to get this done and get any opportunity. And you've got people that just get it handed to you, and it's tough, right? If you look at it in that area or that kind of direction, So yeah.
100%. You know what I live by, and not to get super deep, but my whole motto is hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, right? So you could be the most talented person in the entire world, but if you don't work hard, like it's really hard to get all the things you want. And
Yeah.
some people have it handed to them, and that's life. And I have no problem with that, because that's great. You've been handed a good deck of cards, right? But if anything, like you got to work hard, and with your journey you've worked your butt off, right, to get where you are, and you work harder than really hard. I'm not going to say harder than anyone else. I don't want to make any comparison, but you work really, really hard, and you're in the shop all the time, and you're grinding, and you're pushing yourself, and you're pushing your career, right? So that's really, really incredible. So I guess my question to you at this point then is, like, what does it look like now, and what does it look in the future, and like what are your, so short term, medium, long term, like what are your goals?
Short term, just absolutely, go out and show what I can do. Yeah, this is an amazing opportunity. Mario has built a lot of nice race cars in this off season that I've been a part of and helping put together, and the field is stacked. It is stacked compared to really any other series or season that we've had in the past couple years, really since COVID. When COVID hit and then we came back, the preparation and the money that had to get spent, and what teams were putting into the cars, to be prepared for, at the time, just showing up and racing. Uh, and it was tremendously different than when COVID was before COVID hit, right? So to get a little bit more into detail of that, um, we have to pull the cars down and get the loads correctly, right? Because you can't go out just fire off in the race and be killing the racetrack and hitting really hard on the racetrack. You're obviously not going to be good, right? So there's so many areas that had to ramp up and be better. Whether it was the engine program, whether it was the gear and transmission program, like you couldn't have any problems or you're going to get knocked out of the race early, right? So any type of problem that you could have worked through initially early in practice or even qualifying, after qualifying, you had to step up your game in those areas, and spend a little bit more money to not have that happen in the race, or you're going to finish 38th, right? And 38th doesn't pay very well. Yeah, and then just the intensity of preparation and cars that were being put on track from COVID on has just skyrocketed, and it's still going up now, and it's kind of leveled out. But because the reason it's leveled out is because every team with whatever budget they have to work with is being spent, and yeah, I mean it's just ramped up the field and the talent and everything with involved, and that's awesome for me. I love it, right? It makes me work harder, makes me just work that extra little bit, and everybody's kind of had to do that too. So yeah, the industry is incredible right now with where it's at.
Honestly, like as we look at it, a lot of people are saying that this is the most competitive season that you're going to see in the Xfinity series, right? So we'll take a little bit of a step back, right? So you're in your full time year with Mario, but how did you get linked up with DGM and Mario Gosling?
I know. I want to apologize first. I mean, you asked me one question, and there was like two questions in it, and I start like going off, right? So I
Well,
like
listen, tell your
I
story.
start rambling. I start rambling. I'm going all over the place. But Mario, getting to Mario, yeah. I mean, just a relationship that was created at the track. At the time, I was driving with Mike, and just was seen and noticed, and just would go up and introduce myself to people, whether it was the team owner, whether it was a mechanic, whatever. Right? It's just creating those relationships, and I can't go back and remember exactly the first place I met Mario or whatever, but the first place I drove for him was Daytona 3 years ago and drove 5 races for him. And ironically, so I've driven, there's been more teams now, but at one point in time when I drove for Mario, all 3 teams that I drove for, I finished eighth. And that was a pretty cool stat. And that's actually my best finish still to this day right now is eighth in the Xfinity Series, but finished eighth at Kentucky with Mike Harmon, finished eighth at Atlanta with Mario, and then finished eighth with Jesse Iwuji at New Hampshire, I believe it was. And then I've driven for other teams that I haven't finished eighth with now. But yeah, that was a cool stat for early. But yeah, just the relationship was just created and it kind of just took off from there. But Mario is a super competitive person, just like me. I mean, you want to talk about a hard worker? He's one of them. He's the owner of the team, and he'll work circles around you. Watch out, because I'm telling you, he's there before you. He's there after you, and he's involved in every aspect of his business that he has, and that's what makes his I say underfunded little team, right? I mean, if you compare to it, it's so competitive, right? And just he'll work circles around any type of team that's in this budget area, and I'm the same way. So it is a perfect opportunity, a perfect place to be, and yeah, it's awesome.
Can we get into the spicy stuff for a second?
Let's do it.
All right. So when we went through the process of figuring out where we wanted to be as a sponsor in 2024, we had a meeting lined up the same day as Texas when you were racing, and the gentleman, I'm not going to name names, showed up like 2 hours late in like this pinstripe suit, and when we met Mario and the team and you, and like Mario's got a wrench in his hand and you've got a wrench in your hand, everybody's working so hard. And I know, listen, you don't have Dale Jr. money, right? Like you're not dealing with that type of budget, but everybody on that team works so incredibly hard, right? From top to bottom. And that's like really how we fell in love with you, right? Because like you've met us before and we're really like we're a family oriented business. We really love what we do and you got to work hard at it, and you've been in the industry for a long time and you've seen a lot of different phases like at Mario and at DGM. It's got to be different, right?
It is, and you nailed it. It's family oriented from top to bottom. Mario's whole family works for DGM. So everybody's involved in the sport and in that company, and they all have a hand in it, and they all work together, and they all know their roles and their spots, and they all do everything they can to make any type of opportunity the best it possibly can. And you nailed it, and you're exactly right with the same business that you guys had. It's a family business, family oriented, and that's super important. And that goes back to like the relationship side of stuff, right? It just the relationships that Mario has in his business are just super important to him, and that's why I feel like it succeeds. So he's got great people working for him, on the employee side, and obviously, yeah, his whole family too. So it's a perfect fit, and it's exactly kind of how I grew up too. Obviously, same way you did, Chris, and so did Dan, and that's why this all works together so well, and it's a perfect fit.
So we're getting close to our 9 o'clock hour. So I'm gonna pass it to DLB first to ask any closing questions, then Robert, and then we'll close this thing out. But Kyle, this has been great.
Yeah.
Okay, so for all the new Kyle Weatherman fans out there, is there anything that you want your average NASCAR viewer to know about you that maybe they don't? Like, from my point of view, I'm seeing a very hard-working young man who didn't give up, who's very passionate, who's willing to do whatever it takes. Kind of what do you want them to know about you, and what do you want your story to be come the end of this career? Just the fact that you didn't give up and kept working hard and kept trying?
Yeah, that's one. But there's multiple drivers that I'm going to compare myself to, and that I want to be, and it's Richard Petty, Carl Edwards, and then Chris and David Reagan, Chris Buescher and David Reagan. Those are the three that I kind of model myself off of in a lot of ways, and what I mean by a couple of them is I'm real. I'm a super person, a super person that's going to come up to you and talk to you, whether you're a fan, whether you're what, it doesn't matter, right? And I'll be super personal with you guys and talk to you guys, and uh, you guys are the reason we're able to race on the weekends. So yeah, I'm not stuck up. This is what you see on this screen is exactly when I hit this end button, exactly who I am off screen. And when you guys come to the racetrack and you guys are in the stands hollering or getting autographs or whatever it is, you guys all know that I'm that same person too. So I think that's the most important thing. And it goes back once again to the relationship side stuff and just being who you are. And yeah, I'm not different on screen than I am off screen. And I think that's super important.
And I have two questions here for you before we wrap up here today. You mentioned you've been with a couple of teams in your Xfinity career. By my count, this is 9 teams with DGM. How good does it finally feel to have a home, somewhere where you belong with a family, getting to the racetrack and having a good time?
Yeah, it's super important. And I found out the earliest in my career ever this year of going full time and having great partners like DriveSmart, right? What made that happen? And be able to know, and it worked out perfect too, right? It was before the wedding and all that stuff, right? Where I could have been stressed out of my mind, so just I found out super early, and the earliest I've ever found in my career. And it was somebody and with some people that I wanted it to be with, right? So that's what makes it even better, right? Is it's not something that has to be, dreaded or wishing things could be different. No, it's exactly with the people that I want it to be with, and I've got the exact partners that I want it to be with too, and it's gonna be awesome.
Definitely exciting for you. And my final question is, what would make a successful season for you with DGM, with Drive Smart out there in the NASCAR Xfinity Series?
We're gonna go win a race is what's gonna happen. We're gonna be in the playoffs. So look, we have high expectations, and it's gonna be tough. I mean, it's gonna be super tough to have any of those expectations that I just listed succeeded. But and if it doesn't happen, we go try to do it again next year, right? But at the end of the day, I mean, I think those goals are super possible. Now, is it going to happen every single weekend that we're going to go win races? No, but I mean, we're going to show up to the racetrack every single weekend expecting to do that, and you never know when it's going to happen. It could be Daytona, right? And then those two goals that I just had are checked off in one time, right? You win a race and you're locked in the playoffs for the most part. So, and it can happen as early as Daytona, or it can happen uh, any of the races following that. So, and those are the expectations that I have. But we're going to be smart with it and realize what positions we're in the race and throughout the race, and just position ourselves the best we can. But those are two goals that I have. Yes, they're very high goals and expectations set, but set for the moon and see where they'll go.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Kyle.
Yes, sir.
So I feel
Thank you
like one
guys.
question I kind of cap this off with a question I think Kyle would actually like. So obviously, congratulations on the marriage. How big of a help and support has Meg been in your racing career and your personal life going into this great opportunity that we have set for 2024?
Huge, huge. I was a train wreck before her. Yeah, she helps. She helps in every aspect, whether it's just being my rock, right? So that I mean, that's just the best way to put it right there. So I mean, but she helps in every single aspect and area of my life. It's yeah, there's nothing. Yeah, we're it's perfect, and she's definitely. Um, I couldn't have asked for anything better. She is amazing in every single area, on the racetrack, off the racetrack, at home, traveling. She just helps out, and I was like I said, I was I was all over the place, had no control and rhythm with life or anything before I met her, and I didn't even know it. I didn't even know it, right? So, but yeah, no, she's perfect. She's amazing. I love her.
This has been a great interview, Kyle. We love you so much, and we are so excited to see you out there in Daytona. And I know you've been working your butt off. The entire team has been working their butt off. And make sure that you tune in a few weeks and go ahead and see this race. And with that said, brother, you have a great night, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. All right.
Yes, we'll have to do this again. I love this podcast, and it's gonna be great. But we'll see you guys in Daytona, baby.
Absolutely. And then before you guys in chat go ahead and tune out, you know what our deal is. We always give away something, right? So go ahead if you're in the live chat. A shirt away.
Absolutely. So you heard it there. If you want some merch, blow up the chat because this is your opportunity and get some of that fresh new Kyle Weatherman merch. You just heard him on the podcast, and now this is your chance to rock some merch for potentially your favorite driver going into this season. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's good to see everyone blowing up that chat already. Every single comment you leave in that chat will give you a chance to win one of these amazing, awesome t-shirts. So definitely make sure that you blow it up. Good to see everyone blowing that chat up because it's go time. Time to get some Drive Smart merch. Time to get some Kyle Weatherman merch. Time to type something in the chat. All you got to do is type one thing in the chat. You're entered. You can type as much as you want in the chat. Just blow the chat up.
So, guys, so this is podcast number one, right? We had Kyle in here. Couldn't imagine a better guest, right? But what are your thoughts?
Man, this has been a fantastic time tonight. Like we mentioned when we went to a commercial break, hearing Kyle's story has really opened my eyes personally into the grind that he's gone through, working his way up through the ranks. It's hard to make it anywhere in racing. If it's a driver, if it's an announcer, spotter, crew chief, whatever, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of energy, blood, sweat, and tears. And Kyle put all of that into his career. And I can't wait to see what he can do this season in the Drive Smart machine. I think we're in for a great season with him.
I feel the same way. I feel the same way. Like, I'm just super stoked. I feel like this is such a fun opportunity, and it's so cool to see Kyle, someone who's so driven, get this opportunity. And clearly, if you follow him on X, Twitter, you see how the hard work that he's putting in right now. You see that he's hitting the gym every day. He's working out every day. He's doing everything to set this year up to be as good as it can possibly be. I see a very driven, a very passionate young man who's really ready to attack this opportunity.
So, a couple things I'm going to say right now to close it out before we give away this shirt, right? First and foremost, the Pit Crew podcast. We're going to be here live every Thursday at 8 o'clock Eastern. Uh, so you guys can come and tune in live. If you can't catch it live, no big deal. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it on Apple, and you can find it on Spotify with our podcast. And really dive in. And if you want to watch it again, great. And then most importantly, if you're here on YouTube tonight, like we're gonna need two things from you, right? Make sure you like it, make sure you subscribe, because that's what tells this YouTube algorithm, hey, this is some decent content. And with that said, I want my boys in the back to go ahead and roll that thing. And I'm gonna screw this name up. I'm really sorry, but it's Sparky Astwell. So Sparky Astwell, guess what? You just won a Kyle Weatherman fan shirt. And if I look at the chat before, it seems like you're a Kyle Weatherman fan for some years. So congratulations. You have to do one thing, right? You have to go into our X at Go Dry Smart and go ahead and DM us, and we'll go ahead and get that shirt shipped out to you. Boys, I could not ask for a better opening night for this podcast. It was an incredible time. Kyle really gave us an in-depth look at the entire series from start to finish of his racing career, and I had a lot of fun, and I can't wait to be here next Thursday, guys. So DLB, Robert, I'll let you guys close it out, but I had a blast.
Absolutely. It was so much fun. Thank everyone for tuning in to the first ever episode of the Pit Crew podcast presented by Drive Smart Warranty. And we'll catch you next week, next Thursday night at 8 p.m. Every Thursday night, we'll be hitting you with a brand new episode. So tune in, and thank you so much for tuning in here tonight. We'll catch you all in the next one.